Hi there. Thank you for joining us for this month's A11yTalks. Each month, we get together online to learn about a variety of topics related to accessibility. Please follow us on Twitter. We are A11yTalks, that's A11yTalks, or visit our website at alleytalks.com to keep apprised of our upcoming sessions and any other information we're able to put out there. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And with that YouTube plug, let me just remind everyone that this is recorded. So if you have a sense of humor like mine, we've got to tuck that back in just for the next hour or so. With that, though, A11yTalks really does seek to provide a friendly, safe environment so that all participants can feel engaged in a productive dialogue. And that includes your Q&A at the end. So if you want to share and learn, please join us, but please make sure to follow the Drupal Code of Conduct. If you have any questions throughout today's session, please enter them into the chat or tag us on Twitter, and we'll cover those at the end of the talk. I'm excited to share that today ASL interpretation has been brought to us by Fable. Fable is an accessibility platform powered by people with disabilities. And you can learn more about them at makeitfable.com. So with that, today we are excited to be joined by Meryl Evans, an accessibility marketer who is on IMDb as well as being awesome in this field. How did that happen? All right, I know we need to get to the session, but how did that happen?
I was in a video called BBS, the documentary, which is Burlington Board System. So I've been online before the internet existed.
That is so cool. Okay, so I'm gonna have a geek fangirl moment, but we probably should talk about this awesome talk where Meryl's gonna help us all break through some of these assumptions we have about deafness. So are you ready to roll?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Thank you, Donna. Howdy, I'm Meryl, pronoun she, her. I'm a member of Generation X with shoulder-length curly hair, pale skin, glasses, and a lavender top. By now, you've probably noticed I have an accent. Some of you may have figured it out. For those of you who haven't, I'll give you a hint. It's not from anywhere you can travel. Once someone asked if I had a French accent. That was cool, but that's not it. Others get texting only because I say howdy and y'all a lot. Because I am a native Texan born and bred in Fort Worth and live in Plano, Texas, right by Dallas. I was born hearing free, so this is a deaf accent that can be described as a thick tongue accent. By the time I was 1, I got this vintage hearing aid on my chest. In the photo of me as a 5-year-old, dressed like a cowgirl with the dark hat and boots and looking mighty tough. The hearing aid was a rectangular box tucked inside its own case with straps that went over my shoulders and around my waist to hold it in place. Both sides have a cord connecting the earpieces to the box. It took 4 AA batteries to power it. When I was 9, the behind-the-ear hearing aids were finally powerful enough for me to switch. Then a couple decades later, give or take, I leveled up to a bionic ear, also known as cochlear implant. In my day job, when I am not an accessibility and caption pusher, I am an accessibility marketer, speaker, trainer, and consultant.
A very short story of a deaf person. Can Meryl talk? Yes, in 3 languages. The end.
At the time of this short story, I was taking Spanish and French in high school. Obviously, the assumption that deaf folks don't talk with their voice isn't true. Now, that doesn't mean all of them talk. Some do, some don't. Some choose not to use their voices. some don't have an accent like mine. Many factors come into play when it comes to speech. But try as I might, I don't do the letter R very well. And what do you know? I have one in the middle of my name. Now that we've busted the myth that deaf people don't talk, how do we apply it to accessibility? We need to design speech-to-text technology to work with accents that are different. I know there are a couple of companies working on this. We also need to ensure that speech or voice should not be the only input option. Imagine if a company made a phone that operates on voice alone. Not only will you lock out deaf people who don't speak, but also other disabilities that affect a person's voice, including stuttering, Tourette's, people with accents from other countries, or a temporary disability that causes a person to lose their voice. A human resources consultant recommended phone calls for the first job interview with a candidate because it removes bias. That's not true. People with accents were given away. And what about those with speech disabilities and don't talk? To ensure the interview is inclusive, offer multiple communication options.
A very short story of a deaf person trying meditation. Video says,
"Close your eyes." Meryl closes her eyes.
the end.
Here's how I describe what I hear. Think of a foreign language you don't know. I bet if you see or hear the language, you'll know what language it is, but you won't be able to read it or understand it. That's what my hearing is like with my hearing device. It can tell a person is talking, but my hearing can't translate what it hears into words. Just like you know a few words in a language you don't know. I catch words here and there without lip reading. My bionic ear recognizes dogs, doorbells, songs, and the dryer buzzing, demanding I empty it. However, I often can't tell where the sound comes from, and sometimes I cannot tell what the sound is. Like the time when I was a teen and came home from babysitting to noise I could not identify. By the way, parents trusted me to babysit their kids despite knowing they couldn't call me to check in. Anyway, it turned out to be the blower over the kitchen stove. We hardly used it. Lip reading is my number one listening tool. So why do I wear a hearing device? My bionic ear supersizes lip reading. For example, mom, bob, mob, mop, pop, all look the same on the lips without sound. The bionic ear helps me distinguish the M's from the B's from the P's. So, if I close my eyes to meditate, I am not going to catch whatever comes next. Some deaf folk can carry a conversation on the phone without help, and some can't. Deaf people don't fall into neat little buckets. Deafness is a spectrum. Some people hear nothing, some hear a little, and some hear with hearing devices. It's all over the place. When it comes to alert and notification, offer options. An alert could be a pop-up visual on the screen, a sound, or a haptic vibration. The iOS notification contains many options. Even hearing people use visual and touch alerts. Not everyone wants to be alerted by sound. That's the value of universal design, which is design that's usable to the greatest extent possible by everyone, regardless of age, size, ability, or disability. always offer multiple contact options. Uncontacted take the part in an online chat. They ask for a phone number in case we got disconnected. I submitted a suggestion to add email as an option. The next time I used the chat, they gave me a choice of providing a phone number or email.
A very short story of a deaf person meeting a USVP. He signs and says,
Thank you. I don't know sign language.
the end.
The most common assumption people make about me is they assume I know American Sign Language or ASL. I don't. That is neither a good thing or a bad thing. There is no right or wrong. It just is. I was signed up to speak at an accessibility conference and got an email from the organizers saying they will provide interpreters for me. Thank goodness they emailed first. Imagine what could have happened if they had interpreters waiting for me at the conference. The most common misconception about ASL is that it's English on the hand. That's not true. There's something called signing exact English, but that's not ASL. ASL has its own syntax. And notice why I haven't learned sign language. No one in my life is fluent. I forgot a lot of the Spanish I learned in high school. I only remember simple phrases and common words. Language fluency requires regular practice. Another misconception is that ASL is a universal language. It's not. ASL is specific to the United States. We also have BASL, which is Black American Sign Language. In the movie For a Wedding and a Funeral, there was a deaf character and people signing with him. After watching the movie for the first time, I commented, "Hey, those sign language has an accent." This was before I learned about British Sign Language or BSL. Even as someone not fluent in either language, I could tell a difference. There are many other sign languages. Another communication tool is cued speech. It's not a language, but rather a communication modality like augmentative and alternative communication, or communication methods to supplement or replace speech. When you meet someone who has an interpreter, don't look at the interpreter or say things like, "Tell this person this." Look at the deaf person and talk to them. Yes, there are exceptions that show the importance of letting go of assumptions and norms. Here's one. I attended a session with a deaf speaker who signed. He had an interpreter speaking what he signed. Where do you think I looked? That's right, at the interpreter to read her lips. And they called me on it. I told them I was interested in what the speaker had to say, and to do that required me to lip read the interpreter. People may think they're being helpful and proactive by lining up accommodations without asking. That wasted money and it could deprive the person of the correct accommodation. Always ask. If you're planning a conference or a webinar, list the accommodations you will have on the information page. One time, a friend told me about a conference. I went to read about it and to see if it was captioned. Nothing. I let my friend know. He told me that they had the information on the page after you register. No one is going to sign up without knowing what accommodations are available first. That information needs to be present before registration. Also, add a note about accommodation on the registration form. Be aware some people think requesting accommodation will reflect on them negatively. That's why a lot of people with invisible disability never reveal it. They're afraid it will affect their job and advancement opportunity. Provide both caption and sign language interpreter, or at least that you'll provide them upon request. People who prefer sign language say they find it much easier to follow a live event with an interpreter instead of caption. If you're providing a sign language interpreter, be sure to get the right language for the country or whatever the customers need. And when it comes to caption and transcript, you want to offer both because screen readers and refreshable braille devices work with transcripts. And I've met a few deaf and hard of hearing people who prefer transcript over caption. But don't skip the caption because many find transcript hard to follow. A final word on caption. Automatic captioning tools are a good starting point. The key is to edit them. You wouldn't publish a blog post without editing. Same thing applies to captions for video. You wouldn't want to publish automatic caption without editing.
A very short story of a deaf person. Once, time, deaf, reader watched. Story, lick, on, catch 1/3, said, end.
Many assume all deaf people read lips and that lip readers catch everything. A man who was identified as hearing impaired his entire life says he relies solely on his hearing aid to listen and doesn't read lips. And people who become deaf or hard of hearing later in life don't all know how to read lips. I started therapy for speech and lip reading when I was 1, and I did lots and lots of it for years. Despite this, I missed a lot of what is said. The reality is that, on average, people who read that catch only 1/3 of what's said. The previous short story has more than 1/3 of the words. How much of it made sense? This doesn't mean that in every scenario, I only catch 1/3 of the conversation. It's more like I understand my mom 94% of the time. For someone with a heavy accent or who mumbles, it's more like 10%. Unfortunately, I have a harder time understanding accents. It's not the person's fault. It's a limitation of my lip reading capability. And I don't have the heart to tell someone I can't understand them. I feel it will be seen as an insult. So, how much I understand depends on the person. My bionic ear helps me be a lip reader as I catch more when I have it on and can hear the speaker's voice. When I'm in a noisy setting and can't make out the speaker's voice, I'm stuck, relying on reading lips alone. The accuracy rate will fall by a lot. I enjoyed Only Murders in the Building on Hulu and loved that I had a deaf character. However, the show is reinforcing the myth that deaf folks read lips fluently. The deaf character reads lips perfectly from a distance, wearing binoculars. He can understand what people say when you only see the sides of their faces. I went back to these scenarios and watched their lips. And these actors are not enunciating enough. I know the show wants to find a clever way for the deaf character to find out something, but this is far from realistic, especially the sideways lip reading. It's like when Molly Matlin was on Seinfeld. One of the characters acted hard to read up from across the room and tell them what the person said. That's the stuff of fiction. I could not see a person's lip from across the room, even with glasses. And besides, as I mentioned before, a lot of things look the same on the lips. Experience lip readers miss a lot. And speaking louder doesn't help everyone. I have a doctor who talks too loud. I don't have the nerve to tell him that because I don't know if that is his voice or if he's talking louder for me. What makes the difference is enunciation. In short, deaf and hard of hearing lip readers don't catch everything that easily, and not all of them know how to read lips. If someone asks you to repeat, try rephrasing rather than repeating the exact same sentence. Sometimes it can help to give context if it's a new topic. Don't speak louder. Let the person tell you to speak up. It's easier to ask someone to speak up than to tell them they're too loud. Be proactive. The exact action depends on the circumstances and what you know about the person. I appreciated when someone took notes and shared them with me. If someone is having trouble catching what you say, ask if you can communicate with a pen and paper or text on a mobile device. A fast food chain made news because they would not do this with a deaf customer. I attended a panel where 2 of the 5 speakers wore a mask. A friend of mine gave me a summary of what the masked people said. I appreciated it. There is a difference in being proactive to report what someone said and just bringing in an interpreter without asking.
A very short story of a deaf person meeting friends at a bar.
It's so noisy that I rely on lip reading alone. I smile and nod my way through the evening. Inside, I feel pained. Sometimes I wish I didn't care about socializing. I should have stayed home as FOMO is less painful.
The end.
Have you ever been in a conversation where you smile and nod along without not understanding what the person said? You laugh when others laugh. There's it called social bluffing. Maybe the person is hard to understand. Maybe it's noisy. Maybe you're tired. Many deaf and hard of hearing people do it. Hearing people say they do it too. Social bluffing is a survival skill that helps you get through a situation. And it can fail. Once I almost got caught bluffing. Thankfully, I figured out what the person asked. It would have been embarrassing if I sat there smiling and nodding. But I wasn't so lucky another time when a friend revealed something. My spouse overheard and told me what it was after she left. It stopped me cold. I went home and emailed her. I explained I misunderstood and that I was sorry for what happened to her. I don't want to be a thorn in asking someone to repeat more than once or twice. I may never catch what the person said, so I resort to social bluffing. Again, offer multiple contact options. Some of us avoid the phone like the plague, as relay and caption calls are a stressful experience. Some may prefer it. Probably tell us what the conversation is about. Give us context. As we all tend to have phones, perhaps you could text the person. The key is to be discreet. Like the friend who quietly told me what the masked speaker said. At one video meeting before caption, a friend privately messaged me what was going on. I appreciated these friends. One friend embarrassed me in front of the whole auditorium by letting the speaker know to stop walking past me as I couldn't read his lips. I know they meant well, but no one wants to be in the center of attention like this.
A very short story of a deaf person in a noisy setting.
Hey, it's the one song I can recognize anywhere.
The end.
I bet most of you have seen one of those viral videos of sign language interpreters wildly signing at a rock concert. There wouldn't be interpreters at concerts if there weren't deaf people attending. If I learn a song by heart, I can follow it when it plays. Sometimes I can even figure out what the song is by the first few notes before a word is sung. I learned a lot of songs from captioned movies and TV, songbooks, and looking up the lyrics. Whenever I came across an album with other words to the song before the internet, it was like finding a unicorn. Deaf and hard of hearing people enjoy music in different ways. We've come a long way from printed lyrics. I love Amazon music because it shows the lyrics as they are sung, but not for all songs, unfortunately. I even learned how to play the piano and clarinet, but I wasn't very good. You know that joke on how to get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. That's exactly what I didn't do. This is my youngest, playing the baritone in band. Marching band season was one of my favorite times at the school year. Don't avoid words like hear, hearing, listen, sound, music, etc. in fear of offending us. I listen, just in a different way than hearing people do. Caption your music. If there are no words, describe the music. Is it jaunty? Is it foreboding? Like alternative text for images, be descriptive yet concise, and always include the lyrics when the song is sung. For more captioning tips, check out the guide at meryl.net/captions.
A very short story of a deaf person in meetings.
I sit where I have a good view of everyone in the meeting. When the speaker changes, I scan the room to find the new speaker. Rinse, lather, repeat. I leave the room feeling dizzy from watching the ping pong match disguised as a meeting.
The end.
I've had vertigo my whole life. It feels like the room is moving even though I'm perfectly still. Other times I feel lightheaded and tired, have bad eyes strain, or all of the above. I never knew it was tied to my deafness until my cochlear implant surgery. That's because the surgery caused the worst vertigo of my life. After that happened, I received a referral to a vestibular specialist. That's when I learned my lifelong problem with vertigo is due to being born deaf. This piqued my curiosity about the connection between deafness and vestibular disorder. One study found 70% of deaf and hard of hearing children with sensorineural hearing loss have a vestibular disorder. That's why it's important for people not to walk and talk or bounce back and forth on video calls. It's dizzying, especially for lip readers. If someone needs to move around a lot, I'd hide the video and rely on captions instead. The specialist gave me exercises and I didn't do them for long because they wore me out. I read somewhere that it's possible to get the same kind of benefit with virtual reality goggles. I think we all agree that VR is a heck of a lot more fun than vestibular exercises. Thankfully, the VR App Store provides the comfort rating for each app. So when I look for apps and games, I choose for those with comfortable. Unfortunately, there are no search filters for the rating. Also, a search for caption or subtitle doesn't help me find captioned apps. Besides, some games have on-screen and audio instructions. These are not called caption or subtitle. It turns out vestibular disorders affect more than those who are deaf and hard of hearing. The Vestibular Disorders Association says more than 35% of U.S. adults aged 40 and older experience vestibular dysfunction at some point in their lives. It's always a better user experience to let viewers have control over any motion. Hence, it's important for designers to think about vestibular challenges when creating products. Any step to minimize motion can make a big difference, especially in VR. Websites with parallax are a terrible experience for people sensitive to motion. Give viewers as much control as possible over motion in video. On Twitter, you can play and stop playing animated GIFs in videos. This works well. Avoid rolling, scrolling, and moving captions that don't let the viewer read at their own pace. The same goes for karaoke style captions, unless they're really for karaoke. There's a reason why reduced motion is an accessibility option, and preferred reduced motion is an option in CSS. And add those filters for accessibility and comfort rating to make it easier to find accessible apps.
A very short story of a deaf person in a drive-through.
I want to order a medium soda. That's all. I cross my fingers. Here's your soda. I breathe a sigh of relief as I drive off.
The end.
What is your role? No matter how you answer, accessibility is all of our responsibility. Marketers can ensure social media and blog content are accessible. Sales can ensure presentations are accessible. Executives can ensure accessibility becomes part of the organization culture. Managers can add accessibility to performance review. HR can ensure job postings are accessible and include accessibility in job responsibilities. Employees can ensure meetings are accessible for everyone. User experience pros need to provide accessible communication options for participants. Teachers can teach children to make content accessible. Professors can make accessibility part of their curriculum. Healthcare providers can ensure they provide accessible communication options. Retailers can ensure their services are accessible. And customers can ask companies to make content accessible. The list goes on. 18 months after the pandemic started, I finally needed to take my first COVID test as a proactive measure. I had no problem scheduling online. I had to do something I've never done in the 20 years I've lived across from the pharmacy. The test required me to go through the drive-thru. Right before the appointment, a text message came with a link to a video of the drive-thru process. Caption, awesome, point for that. After watching it, I told my spouse, I'm going by myself. He insisted on going with me. Boy, am I glad he did. When I got to the window, I couldn't see the person because of the glass reflection that made it hard to see inside. The person had a mask on and talked through a speaker. She couldn't understand me. When I received the text, it wasn't obvious what to do. I was extremely frustrated. It didn't help that I needed to depend on someone to make this happen. When I shared this experience, I learned about another customer who wanted to use the drive-through due to a mobility disability. She said they told her to come in. She went to a competitor, and a blind friend couldn't make an appointment online without help. How was it not accessible after 18 months? Three different disabilities are affected in three different ways for one process, which was to get a COVID test. It's not just the digital products that need to be accessible. Companies need to ensure the processes are accessible, especially in banking and healthcare, where privacy is crucial. Accessibility isn't a development team's job, it's everyone's job. And companies need to ensure every part of the process is accessible, including in-person and customer service interaction, and for their own employees. Whenever I go to the doctor's office, I sit facing the door where they come out. When they call a name, I look around to see if anyone responds. If no one does, then I get up and go to the door. How about testing us when it's our turn? Or use something like a restaurant paging device that lets you know when your table is ready. Or use a simple whiteboard with a name on it. I knew one doctor's office required calling from the parking lot upon arrival. I emailed them and asked for another option. They said I could text instead. They should have listed it as an option up front. Make sure updates or notifications have enough information. I changed an appointment. I received a text message about a canceled appointment, but it didn't have a date on it. I panicked because I feared my new appointment was canceled. It wasn't. Some creative solution like that big coffee company did. I love ordering on their app and looking for the cup with my name on it when I pick it up. No human interaction or misunderstanding. Yes, we can play sports, jump out of a plane, zip line, run a half marathon, have babies, raise a family, travel, everything. Some of us may choose not to do any or some of these, just like any hearing person who doesn't play sports or drive. There are deaf people who may not be able to, but are not likely because of their deafness. Many companies with good intentions follow the functional solution model of disability. While they take a real-world approach to innovation and finding solutions, they overlook the social and political implications and other issues. Many folks share article after article of invention that would supposedly make life better for people with disabilities. Technology that sounds cool and useful doesn't mean it's a good idea. Often they're expensive or didn't include people with disabilities in the process. When you ask for feedback, don't stop with one deaf person or one blind person. People with the same disability are all different. Many disabilities are a spectrum. People with disabilities don't want, as Liz Jackson says, disability dongle. The best thing businesses can do is talk to people with disabilities throughout the product life cycle that begin but when you build anything, better yet, expand your own brain trust by hiring people with disability. You've heard nothing about us without us. Let's take it a step further and make it nothing without us. Feel free to connect with me at Meryl.net and on Twitter at Meryl, letter K in the middle, Evan, and on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/n/Meryl. I want to send a Texas Dad yeehaw and thank you to Fable for sponsoring, the A11yTalks team for having me, and to y'all for coming. Donna, do we have questions?
Thank you, Meryl. That was amazing. Yes, we do have questions. They're going to be showing up on the screen in one moment. Aha, there we go. So, what can people do to make lip reading easier?
Enunciate. It's all about enunciation and thinking about moving your lips. There are some people who, I call them teeth talkers. They talk with their teeth and their lips don't seem to be moving. All you see is teeth moving. So try to, the cool thing is I'm very lip readable, even though my accent is different, but at least my lips are pretty easy to read. And that's because I learned while doing speech therapy to move my lips the way I read them.
No, I can actually really relate to that. Growing up, I'd be my sister's interpreter a lot of the times in crowded, big Italian holidays, yada, yada, yada. I'd have to be the one, lip reading 1 foot away to try to sort through that. So I've gotten very good at doing, I'm exaggerating now for humor, but I used to do a lot of that. Either that or but that's another story. All right, great. So enunciation. Next question. Awesome. Why do some ASL users have trouble with captions?
That's a great question.
Very good.
So I think what we have to do is think of ASL as the foreign language. Don't think of it as English at all. Think about somebody whose first language is Spanish. Do you think they would rather read the English caption or hear the dubbed Spanish? Same thing with sign language. They're more comfortable with it. They interpret it better. When I ask my friends, they just find it just so much easier to follow. Most people who are bilingual have one language they tend to be more comfortable in. They think about it all the time. It's natural to them. They're not having to take extra steps to translate it in their mind. That's what ASL does for people who prefer sign language.
That makes so much sense. Thank you very much for that context. So are car companies making an effort to create assistive technologies that will help deaf or those who identify as hard of hearing?
That's a very cool question. I have been driving 2 days after I turned 16, and I've got an 18-year-old at Purdue who refuses to get his license, and he's hearing, just to show you the difference. Anyway, my favorite technology in my car is the GPS screen because it's the big screen on the dashboard. I can't use my phone because it's too small and it can't be placed in a safe spot. That's why my Apple Watch is wonderful. When it's giving me turn-by-turn direction, I can drive and see what's on my watch very safely. But the GPS screen is the best one because it's big and you don't take your eyes off the road. The problem is mine is outdated. My car is more than 10 years old and the maps are story out of date. So I'm having to use my phone Firstly, my watch makes it safer. So, truthfully, I've read that deaf people are some of the best drivers because we use our eyes. We pay attention very closely. Blind spot monitor is wonderful because you can see it on the screen, on the mirror, and then the GPS screen, and then firstly, when it comes to emergency vehicles, I can see them right away. I always see them before I hear them.
That's awesome. And I love the combination of technologies like the Apple Watch and just frankly your own accommodating the world around you. That's a lot of mental energy. And I think that should be acknowledged because yeah, I don't pretend I'm as alert. So that's amazing. So next, we're kind of curious about notifications on the phone. I mean, honestly, this stupid thing has been going off and buzzing, and I'm like ignoring it and trying to shove it into something with a cushion so I can stop hearing it. But what kinds of things are you using, or do individuals who are deaf use to help make that easier, other than maybe the texting you mentioned earlier?
What the cool thing is, my watch works with my phone, so I get haptics on my watch. And when I know what is coming on my watch without looking. So if somebody comes to the door to drop off a package, even if they don't ring the doorbell, I'll get an alert on my watch. It's a certain vibration pattern, and I'll know somebody's at the door, or I have to go check for a package so I can get it right away. If it's a text message, it's a different pattern, and I know it's a text message, and I look at my watch quickly to see what's important. And I also use it for a timer so I can stop burning my food. So I set the timer and it gives me a different pattern. Just like people have different ringtones for different people or different apps or haptics are the same way. It's based on touch and vibration. And it's one of my favorite visuals because it's discreet and it doesn't choke me or anything. It never happened. The only thing that chokes me is the old vibrating alarm system I had years ago. It would really vibrate really hard and choke me out of bed. And so fortunately I learned how to wake up before that thing went off. So
That might help the rest of us. That's fantastic. But no, that's amazing. All right. So I think we only have like 3 questions left. Let's go through those. Thank you, individuals, for asking questions. By the way, this is so much more inviting when it's a conversation. So thank you. All right. Do you have any solutions for forgetting to turn off the faucet?
I'm still looking, and I recently saw a deaf person presenting at a conference. He was presenting deaf solutions to help the deaf people, and turning the water running was one of them. So I went to look it up to see how it worked, and it really isn't there yet. And Android and iOS app phone and iPad have sound notification feature. Take a look at your phone right now in the settings. You'll find it under accessibility, but it is useless. See, it will tell me when I turn the water on to wash my hands. Obviously, the water is on. I'm washing my hands. The problem is when I step away. So sometimes I usually only turn on one side, but occasionally I'll turn on the other side. And it's that side I end up leaving running because I forgot about it. And even in my age, even after a few decades, I'm still flooding my bathroom. I never learn. And I'm still looking for a solution that works, but nothing yet. So if anybody knows, you know where to find me.
All right. Well, A11yTalks viewers, you have a challenge. Whoops. You have a challenge. Come on, hit us on Twitter. Let's hear this. All right. I think just a couple more. All right. Here's a more personal one. Were you ever like self-conscious about using your voice, or did it just come naturally? I mean, I've heard from others different ways. You've shared stories of different ways of approaching it. How was your experience? What was that like?
Well, since I've been speaking since I was a little one, a little wee one, I just learned to speak before I grew up, became a teenager, and became conscious about these things. So I had already been doing this for more than 10 years. So it's a little too late to become conscious about it. I do freak out every time I listen to a recording of myself. I cannot stand it. And that's why I never thought I would ever do video. I've been a marketer for decades, and I knew video was the way to go. And but never thought about doing it myself because I knew I'm realistic. I know I have an accent. Some people don't understand it, or maybe it annoys people. I have met people whose voices irritated me, so I thought maybe my voice irritates them. And I did a very short video to see what would happen, and the response was tremendous. And I never thought I would become a speaker because I feared the reception to my voice. And no, people have been wonderful, welcoming, and they're inviting me to speak. So I would think they would not do that if it was a problem. So I just learned to live with it. I'm too old to care about.
But I love it because when it's all you know as a kid, that's just what life is. And now as an adult, your voice is speaking things that not everyone has access to. So thank you. Just to let you know, we just heard from someone in the background. They do have battery powered faucets that shut off after 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. Oh, awesome.
I have no idea what I'm talking about. I just got fed a note. So hopefully this is awesome because it sounds pretty cool to me. All right. How can individuals who are able to hear support people to make sure that they're more comfortable using their voice? You've had a great experience where it was just part of who you are and you just move beyond. And side note, most of us hate how we sound when we hear ourselves later. I don't want to know either. It's just awful. So if it helps, that's a very small piece of a much bigger puzzle. I appreciate that. But just to let you know, we all get like that a little bit. But how can those of us who are able to hear better support others to be able to use their voice and move beyond those barriers?
That's an interesting question. I did my first video because of two people who said I need to make videos. So that's how you can do that. You can encourage them to speak or make videos. Or it's a tricky one because, like I said, deafness is a spectrum. Some people choose not to use their voice. I'm assuming what you're talking about actual voice and not necessarily signing being the voice.
I interpreted this as a voice, but if it's something we can do to help promote people communicating in any way and telling their stories, I think I know I am, and I'm sure everyone here is very interested in hearing your perspective as well.
So just talk to us. Talk to us. I mean, when you're talking to us, obviously you want to hear from us. Ask questions. That's a great way to put it out. The thing is, not everybody has an accent. So I know one person who got cochlear implant when she was 7, 8, 9, and she speaks beautifully. She does not have an accent like I do because she had hearing for the first 5, 7 years of her life, which is a very critical time that affects your speech. So you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know that she's deaf if she didn't say anything about it. So ask questions, email us, reach out, be proactive, come to us. It helps so much. I have trouble with small talk, getting started in a conversation. And I'm in a leadership program, and I stood up in front of the whole class and I said, I'm the deaf lady. We didn't know each other quite yet. I'm the deaf one. And I said, I have a hard time getting to know people and approaching people and get conversation started. But please feel free to come to me. Don't be afraid. Just come talk to me. And when we took a break, one of them actually walked up to me and we had a conversation. It was wonderful.
That's great. It sounds like we should also ask if there is a preferred communication method or anything like that along the way. That's awesome. Thank you. We are just about to wrap up, to be honest. We're getting close to our time box. And before I start all the thank yous, because I have to, I want to, not have to, whatever. This is why you're talking, not me. Were there any final comments you wanted to share with our listeners today?
I think I've covered a lot of it. There's a whole lot that goes on that people don't realize. Deaf people have habit. We do things done right. Like I mentioned, the doctor's office. I watch to see if anybody's saying that, and then I go, assuming it was me. And I just thought about another one yesterday. I watched a video about Gallaudet University that they have very wide hallways because when we talk and when we walk and talk or sign, we have to look at each other. So if we're walking side by side, I have to look at the person talking to me. I can't walk in front of them or behind them. We have to walk side by side. So I've had a few times when I've slept or almost ran into something because I'm so busy listening to the person next to me. So little things like that. So I'm constantly lip reading and then rushing my way. That little things like that. I have a lot of that in my life, and I've learned that other deaf people have the same thing. Social bluffing is a big one, and it becomes so awkward. You don't want to ask someone to keep repeating, and you're just like, you feel like you're becoming too much trouble. I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel. And it gets hard to say. So that's why I help. Ask if you can help. Ask if you can text or take a note. Ask. That always works. Don't just do it. Just like you would never lean on somebody's wheelchair. You will ask first. So thank you.
No, thank you, Meryl. You're amazing. You're an amazing speaker, and it's been wonderful to hear your voice today and your perspective, and for calling out all of these things. So thank you. Thank you, Fable, again for sponsoring ASL. For those of you who don't know, an accessibility platform powered by people with disabilities, and you can learn more about them at makeitfable.com. I also want to shout out thank you to both Sean and Barbie for your remarkable participation today. This has been a big deal. Thank you. We loved having you here. Thank you all of you who attended, and all of the A11yTalks people that you're not seeing right now who are doing amazing things behind the scenes. So we loved having you, Meryl. Thank you. If you're interested in learning more about A11yTalks, please go to our website, listen to some of our other speakers, hit us up on Twitter with questions. We're always here. We always want to hear from you. Thank you.